What is more pressing to residents around the Dollar Ridge fire region than the lingering fire itself? The very thing that will extinguish the fire, rain, and the floods that follow. Hello again and welcome to the County Seat. I'm Chad Booth. Even before the smoke has cleared from the Dollar Ridge fire, residents along the Strawberry River are having to deal with property-threatening floods that have resulted from heavy rain. For those living near the Strawberry Pinnacles in Duchesne County, heavy flooding appeared only days after the fire passed through. More frustrating than the floods themselves were the things that prevented residents from being ready to combat the rain or clean up after it. And it's not always about resources. Sometimes your options are limited by other things, as Rhea is about to find out in the basics.
Hypothetical question. You have a cabin on a creek in the mountains. You survive a forest fire, only to find that a few weeks later, a severe storm floods your property and threatens your cabin, but you survive. The flood eroded 3 feet of your riverbank and pushed all of it up onto your property along with rocks and fire debris. So a few days later, you take a wheelbarrow and a couple of shovels to the cabin and you start to clear your land and put the washed out dirt back along the bank of the stream, making it the way it was. Was that the right thing to do, or was it wrong? The answer is not only wrong, it's against the law, at least according to the Army Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps of who, you might ask? Well, these are people who have control over the creek beside your cabin. Are they really an army? Yes, they are a division of the U.S. Army. Do they have guns? No, not usually, but they have been given the power to enforce much of the Clean Water Act, especially Section 404, which clearly tells us that you can't reclaim the creek bank on your own property just because you feel like it. So to bring you up to speed on how streams are managed across the nation by this little-known division of the U.S. Army, here are 4 things you should know about the Army Corps and the Clean Water Act. Number 1, the Army Corps of Engineers was actually formed before we officially were a country. Before the first battle of the Revolutionary War, the Continental Congress decided that General Washington needed engineers to help build fortifications, roads, and bridges. But because we didn't really have any military engineers, we borrowed our first ones from France. They have been around ever since. Number 2, the mission of the Army Corps of Engineers is to build and maintain our military bases, space agency, and federal buildings, manage the nation's waterway transportation system, including dam and lock building, dredging, and navigation aid, to provide flood control and related hydroelectric power, and most important to our conversation, to enforce water-related environmental regulations and restore water ecosystems. Fact number 3, the Army Corps is an official command of the U.S. Army, with some impressive alumni, including George McClellan, Robert E. Lee, Henry Halleck, and General P.G.T. Beauregard. This fact alone aided the South in building fortifications, railroads, and logistics that kept the Union at bay, even though they were outnumbered. And fact number 4, it is Section 404 of the Clean Water Act that gives the Corps authority to regulate streams and tributary waterways that lead to navigable waters like the one by your imaginary cabin. Under this authority, people must apply for and receive a permit to alter or restrict the natural flow of any river or creek that flows all the time. The purpose is to make sure that we are considering all the impacts that changing the nature of the river might have to people, plants, fish, and other things. So people trying to obtain permits because their banks are being eroded away and they are losing actual land from their property get very frustrated when they have to hire an engineer, demonstrate they have considered all the options, and wait, sometimes for months, for approval to shore up the banks, costing large amounts of precious time and money. But the argument in favor of permitting is that streams in flood stage produce a lot of energy and are unpredictable. If you fix it at your end without proper guidance, you may cause problems downstream. How carefully this is done will be the topic of the discussion that follows. So now you know about the very real Army Corps of Engineers. For the County Seat, I'm Rhea Rossi Booth.
Antelope Island State Park. Think of it as a treasure island because of the unique activities and treasured experiences you'll enjoy there. Join the fun and excitement of the National Parks Band overlooking White Rock Bay on Saturday, September 22nd. Bring your chairs and friends to Antelope Island State Park for a beautiful evening concert by the National Parks Band. Tickets at friendsofAntelopeIsland.com. Discover nature, buffalo, historic Gar Ranch, and more at Antelope Island State Park. Visit plaindavis.com/antelope today.
For 7 years, Utah's Community Voice has been the county seat, a program that looks beyond politics to spotlight the issues and stories that really matter to you and your community. Now you can help set Utah's agenda for the future by joining the conversation. Become a county seat sponsor and help support those conversations that are critical to the future of state government. Contact us at 801-947-8888 to make your contribution to help the voice of Utah be heard like never before.
Look south to adventure. Look south to beauty. Look south to San Juan County. Out here, the road goes on forever, and what you'll find will change how you see the world. Climb on your OHV and discover forgotten landscapes and vistas that challenge the imagination. From Blanding and Monticello to the cliff faces of Monument Valley, we're open and ready for you to explore. San Juan County, Utah's Canyon Country.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about, well, we're on the subject of fires again. This has been on our minds a lot the last month and a half or so. But now we're out looking at Dollar Ridge Fire. And for a conversation, we are wanting to talk about not the fire itself, which is at this point all but out and all but contained, but about the aftermath of the fire, which in this case has already started the flooding. Joining us for the conversation, the District Ranger of the Ashley National Forest, Christy Groves. Thank you for joining us, Christy. And Ron Winterton, who is a Duchesne County Commissioner. And I appreciate your taking the time to join us today.
Thanks for having us.
When people live in this interface with nature, the fact that there are inherent hazards with doing it. What is the best defense if you're going to build in the woods? Because a lot of the times your insurance that you can get is very limited. What would be the answer?
So I guess if you want to build in the woods, the best defense with the way that forest fires are going these days is to create a buffer around your house. And we recommend 50 feet of no trees near your house, and having a metal roof actually helps you with that structure as well, so that embers falling on your house don't catch your house on fire from the air.
Christy's right. I mean, from a county standpoint, when we look at planning and zoning and they come and try to get a building permit, some of the requirements is the defensible space. We want it cut back enough that it gives the opportunity for the first responders to be able to get in there safely and to protect your structures. And so whether it's in town or just out in alfalfa field or something, we still want it cleared away.
So when did the fire break out?
July 1st.
July 1st.
My question is, when did phase 2 of the disaster hit? Because like in Garfield County, it was almost a year to the day after the fire that they got the next thing they were afraid of, the rain and the mudslides. And that happened much quicker up here.
So we had the little mudslide first. Mm-hmm. That was just about a week into the fire, I believe. It was on a Sunday. We had a little bit of rain showers, and we got a little bit of a mud flow right across Strawberry River Road between Timber Canyon and Camelot. And then this last one was July 22nd. We had a little thunderstorms develop kind of right over lower Timber Canyon, and then that chunk of the Strawberry River right at that junction built up there, had about 1.5 inches of rain in an hour, and that created the mud flow that started coming down from all the little draws in that vicinity all along the Strawberry River.
You say you had a mini mudslide. How much rain does it take in the aftermath of a fire with no vegetation to hold the ground together to create a mud flow? Does it have to rain very long or very hard?
It wasn't very much water. It was about a 1/4 inch of rain over a period of a couple hours, but it was enough to saturate that soil.
I do want to change tacks here for a minute and just talk a little bit about the about 404 permitting, because for the residents up there, this has become a big deal. You were able, as a county, to respond for a period of 48 hours. That's the golden number, to get in and clear debris and take emergency mitigation work without having to go through a permitting process with the Army Corps of Engineers. What is the rationale of the 48-hour exemption, and what happens if you can't get things cleared in that 48 hours?
Well, the 48 hours is for us to get in and protect any infrastructures there, whether it's the road that's getting eroded or a bridge that's been something lodged under it and that. We don't want that to go downstream, and so to get in there and to remove the debris or armor the road to protect it, that's what we as a government agency look at, is that we have 48 hours to do that kind of mitigation on that. After the 48 hours, we still have to put in for a permit, but we tell them what we've done up to this point.
And then from that point forward, you have to go through the planning process, you have to get engineering, you have to go through this whole permit process, which can take how long?
It depends on the impact, whether it's a large area or a small area. They say that they can permit within 30 days. As a county, we had the flood back in 2011. We were 18 months getting through the permitting process and engineering process so that we could actually work on the mitigation that happened, almost 2 years previous. So it's not a fast process, and though the Corps of Army Engineers and Division of Water are sympathetic, they are also charged to protect, whether it's stream alterations and the natural flows or the safety of people. This is what they're looking at, and so we build to their standards.
What happens if you have 48 hours of emergency mitigation work and you have 72 hours of emergency mitigation work that needs to be done? Then what do you do?
We have found if we're protecting infrastructure, usually that 48 hours will extend a little bit, and they'll be lenient with us because, again, they don't want our efforts to be lost. 48 hours is up and we have to pull out, and then we end up losing more. They'll let us finish that up. But again, we have to report what we did and then apply for an application as far as what needed to be done.
I'd like to discuss the rationale behind natural river flows, because that was in the meeting that we attended earlier today. That was a big deal. Well, you just can't go in and do anything on the banks. If you can go in and grab a tree that's without going in the riverbank, and you can move it to higher ground, you just don't really need a permit to do that. Call us and ask us, but that's okay if you want to just cherry pick that out and move it away from the river. But if you're going to do anything to stabilize the flow of the river, that's not good. But we were up there today and saw from this one storm that the road that used to be over here now had to be built over here because that was all mud and the river was in the middle. And so it looks to me like if you can't do some kind of permanent, this is how we're going to take this section and channel the water, that you will every couple of years be rebuilding roads at a different point.
In my prior life, before I was a district ranger, I spent 10 years as a fish biologist with the Forest Service. So we did a lot of work in river channels, some post-fire, some not. But having a natural channel, the way that the natural channels work, is designed to dissipate the energy of the water. And so if you have the nice meanders in a meandering system, that dissipates the energy, and the floodplain actually allows for that energy to be spread out over the floodplain. When you develop in it, you put a road right next to it or you put houses next to it, it loses that ability. And so you have more and more energy building up and more flood potential. So the straighter you make the channel, the more confined you make it, the more energy it's going to carry and the more damage it's going to do when it hits something. So a natural channel, a natural meandering channel, not only provides better fish habitat, but it provides for that opportunity to dissipate that energy from the water.
So is this a philosophical thing of saying, that who's the intruder here? Because the people that build the house think the river's the intruder, and the river, who wants to dissipate and meander and dissipate all that energy, looks at the people as the intruder. Which one carries the day? That's a golden question you guys might disagree on, but I'm going to put it right out there.
That's a good point. I mean, up there in the canyon, it's gone from the south bank to being a northern river, and so it did change the looks of that. And as a county, where do we put the road now that it won't be impacted, or have the least impacts, and still preserve the fishery that we had up there? I guess the Corps and the engineers will decide what's best to try to keep that natural habitat.
Is there a compromise somewhere in this process where you can say, we're going to bric-a-brac this section right here for this 1,000 feet, and then we'll just kind of let it do its thing, and then there's this one other little bottleneck, and we're going to put a culvert here and control it that way, and just try and do minimal stuff? Or does that just affect all of the ecosystem and biology up and down the river?
So anytime you put a culvert in or a bridge in, you're narrowing up the stream. And if you've ever been up there during high flows, you can see how much just forcing all the water down into that narrow point increases the energy and how much erosion that causes. So even just little short segments like culverts can create its own problem. Doing a long section, you're going to add a ton of energy to where it comes out of that section. And that area, you never know what's going to happen once you narrow up that flow. There could be a lot of damage done just by trying to protect a short segment of it.
And then the alternative would be we'll take the road out and don't have any road up there, but then nobody could enjoy it.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of, it'd be a lot of walking. And normally they don't like us crossing their streams, and so they'll be sensitive in that. If we went back to nature, what do the private landowners do with their land that's up there? This is their only way into their real estate, and as a county, we're charged to help protect their right-of-way to get to their property, since it existed already. So it's a hard deal. I don't know how you handle it.
Well, and whenever we have the option, we try and build the roads up a little higher to get them off the floodplain, or try and keep them as far to the edge as possible to still give that river the freedom to move around when it needs to.
Yes, except in this case, it was already on the edge, and the river decided that's where it wanted to be.
This is an extreme event with the fire contributing to it and the excess sediment coming down.
So are there any last points you guys want to make, either one of you?
Outside of this storm, that river is usually controlled coming out of the dam. And so they can control how high the water is at most times. Other times, spring runoff, sometimes they have to open up the dam and let it go. And those people will be impacted anyway, but any other time, we can say that's a nice little river, stream to fish and to enjoy. Now, for the next few years, we're going to have circumstances which we can't even begin to even calculate how much water will come down off from some of these drainages to this river.
The one other hazard that I wanted to bring up, just so people understand that, is entering a fire area. Whether it be down on the Strawberry River or up on the forest, there's a potential for hazard trees. All of those trees were burned and killed, and they will come down. And sometimes it doesn't take wind to bring them down. So anybody entering that fire area needs to pay attention to that.
So if you hear cracking sounds, just...
You may not even hear the cracking sound.
Okay, heads up, so to speak. All right.
Heads up anytime you enter a burn area.
Okay, that's actually very good advice. Thank you, Christy, for that. And thank you. We'll be right back. We'll take a look on the ground in just a minute when we come back on the County Seat.
What would you do with an extra day in Utah Valley? Explore the Wasatch Mountains? Snap a family photo at Bridal Veil Falls. Cool off on Utah Lake or the Provo River. matter what you're searching for, you can find it in Utah Valley. Bring everyone together.
All local products have a story of magical places, real people, and delicious recipes spanning generations. So go ahead and discover flavors you've never tasted and friends you never knew you had. Utah's own Discover Local Food.
There's a little place on a Utah map where I was raised, where my heart's at, where the sagebrush grows wild and high, and the stars come out at night. Oh, there ain't nothing like being raised in the basin with a Ute reservation, skiing starvation, that Duchesne County life.
Welcome back to the county seat. You know, it's hard to comprehend from a description how devastating floods can be. Even snapshots only provide a two-dimensional concept of the destruction. So, we are going to take you to the aftermath of the Camelot floods and meet the people who directly are affected by it on the ground.
This is unbelievable. This is after kind of a torrential downpour here. Look at the size of some of those logs. We were up here when the flooding started. I was actually in the house, but I had the screen door open and I could hear what sounded like breaking trees.
For about the first 5 minutes, the banks held the water in up along this area, but within about 5 minutes to 10 minutes from the time the water started to rise, it was 10 feet high up to the top of this bank over here. I am on a corner lot, so the flood actually came over my entire property. I was lucky that my house sits up about 2 feet from the ground, so it didn't get into my homes or my sheds, but it covered everything with about at least 3 or 4 inches, some places up to a foot of mud. This used to be a walkway down to the river. This was a graveled area. That is one of the boulders that used to be in the little waterfall up the stream here. And at the same time it flooded the back of the property, it started coming over the riverbanks, the lower riverbanks down here, and eventually worked all the way to the top of the lot, where the banks are about 6 feet high. The only thing we're able to do now is to sandbag around our home and just let the river do what it does if it comes over the banks again.
We had a group meeting for the people that were up here, and we've kind of spread the word that, you know, watch the water, listen to sounds like breaking trees like we heard before. But we've got a system that, you know, everybody basically stay packed ready, you know, so that, you know, you can grab your phone, your keys, your medication, you know, whatever's most important to you. And then just watch out for each other.
We're just coming on to the monsoon season, the winter snow, the spring runoff. They're still working on breaking up the log jams up the river. We don't know how much is going to come down, at least until next spring and probably later.
If debris does flow again, that's what our biggest concern is if it gets caught in a bridge and it backs up again. So we're hoping that we can still get some effort to look for those places and just continue to do the best job that Duchesne can to help us for the next one.
So in the future, on advice from the emergency management people, they say rather than try to control the river, the best thing to do is just protect your structures. So that's what we've done. We've put up sandbags around our house on 3 sides where the water would run against, and hopefully that'll do some good in the future, because we have more to come, I'm sure.
We will be right back with some closing thoughts.
in a place that is beyond words. There is nothing to be said, except take your time in Bryce Canyon country.
The Utah Farm Bureau began as a collection of farmers supporting each other to raise the food we enjoy. Today, Farm Bureau membership encompasses everyone, whether ranchers, growers, or just everyday folks like you and me. Members enjoy discounts on items like vehicles and ATVs, or insurance that's very affordable. You don't have to be a farmer to join, and dues are small, but together we make a big difference in keeping our food supply local and abundant. Join Utah Farm Bureau.
This is what adventure looks like, and here's what it sounds like. Southwest Utah's Iron County offers some of the most iconic trails within the state that include 200 miles of new trails to be discovered. Check out ironcounty.net for info and interactive maps for your complete guide to off-roading. Explore countless miles of trails in the heart of Dixie National Forest, the gateway to Utah National Parks, Iron County.
149 million years in the making, dinosaurs once roamed this land. Now they're found at the Dinosaur National Monument. Let's take you beyond the bones. We call it Dinosaur Land. You'll find it offers adventures and sights not seen anywhere else in the world. Come to Dinosaur Land, Vernal, Utah. You'll want to stay forever. The dinosaurs did.
Welcome back to the county seat. As Ron Winterton and Christy Groves both pointed out, the Strawberry River is usually managed favorably by the dam at Soldier Creek. But with the compromised watershed due to the fire, that will no longer be the case for years to come. In the past week, both Governor Herbert and senatorial candidate Mitt Romney have called for revisions on how we manage forests going forward. Now, there have been those really critical of their comments, but our choice is to either allow forests to cycle from new to healthy to old and then to burn catastrophically, or to strategically manage them at the level of good health and sustained yield and maturity. In my mind, this is common sense, and both leaders should be applauded for being courageous enough to mention that the emperor is wearing no clothes. I hope this dose of common sense carries forward to riverbank management as well. We can't make every river where man lives like the Los Angeles River and entomb it in concrete. Nor should we leave every square inch up to the whim of Mother Nature. Some practical compromise on these issues needs to be applied. That's my 2 cents worth. And that's it for the county seat. See you next week.